Testing. 1, 2, 3, 3.
This is Backward Cinema, the podcast, and I'm your host, Zoe. It is our 53rd episode. Thank you for downloading or streaming. I really appreciate it. And Happy New Year. We're finally back on our first full regular episode, and we're in the new year 2022. And I hope that you enjoyed our new interest music and the new artwork that you saw in the app. And we've also got some new merch. So why don't you go check it out at our website, backlickcinema.com. So, as I normally say, the reason that we started this show was to strengthen the bond between my son Zach and me, Zoe. We watch movies that I loved when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. While Zach isn't a part of the actual podcast, we did watch a classic movie yesterday, and we will get into that. But first, I would like to ask you that if you like the show, then rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser.com, or your favorite podcast app. And if your favorite app happens to be Spotify, I'm happy to let you know that you can now rate us on Spotify. A 5-star review on Spotify would be most appreciated. Finally, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can find the details in the show notes. So, as far as what I've been up to recently, because I have had some bonus episode where I've talked about some things that had been going on. But recently, I just finished Hawkeye, the Marvel television series on Disney+. I thought it was very good, and I would highly recommend it, especially if you have children. If you're a father and son or a father and daughter team, you might want to consider this show. If you're a family with children, you should watch this show, especially if you happen to like an action adventure / mystery series. This was very good. Now, many people have rated this as their favorite Marvel show, and it is a very good story. I don't know if I would put it as my favorite. It's hard for me to rank these things because, like, every time I see something new, that new thing becomes my favorite thing, unless it's a really poorly done thing, and it's not the case. But I can attest that it's a very good show. I very much enjoyed it. So I also started watching The Book of Boba Fett, and it is off to a promising start. They didn't beat around the bush on how Boba Fett survived on Tatooine after the events of Star Wars Return of the Jedi, and it tells his past and his present simultaneously. And so I thought that was pretty unique. Well, it's not unique, but it's a neat way of telling his story. And I'm happily watching it unfold. And I would recommend this show also, especially if you're a fan of Boba Fett. He didn't really get a really good, how should I say this? It's like he's kind of overhyped. It's like he comes off as like this badass, and in the movies he's really not that badass. He just looks threatening, but in the show it kind of fills him out. So you get to see some, like you saw some of it if you watched The Mandalorian. And so this series, since it focuses on him, I guess we'll get to see much of what he is capable of. So it's off to a promising start. It's a good first episode, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the character throughout the series. And also, what I've been able to do is I finished Star Wars Jedi Order, the video game. I actually finished that on New Year's Day, right around 1:00. So I guess it's fair to say that my first hour of the new year was spent playing Star Wars. And it's a pretty good game. There were some elements of it that were really frustrating. And I expected more as far as the final character, the final boss, but the final boss was actually frustrating enough. And I guess I don't know. I think I expected more of a puzzle aspect. I don't know what I was expecting, but at any rate, it is still a pretty good game. And in my mind, I keep comparing it to another game that another Star Wars game with lightsabers, and using the Force. And I can't remember what that game was called, but I felt that the other game, I feel like I was really using the Force, and in this game I felt limited. So that's why it wasn't as fun as I anticipated, but it was still a pretty good game. So those are a few things that I've been up to. And also with this particular episode, I want to issue a content warning, because this episode will deal with the subject of suicide and depression, mental health, even though we are talking about a comedy. So that is what I want to put out there. So if you're sensitive to the subject of suicide or depression, this episode may not be for you. But I don't know. I don't suffer from these conditions. At least I don't think that I do. But if you do, you may consider checking out the next episode instead of this one or one of our past episodes. Anyway, let me get right into it. So the movie that we're going to talk about today is Better Off Dead. See, that should tell you what this movie might be about. So I'm going to break this movie down in a little blurb. So the teenager, Lane Meyer, has an obsession for his girlfriend, Beth Truss. When Beth dumps him over a successful skier named Roy Stalin, Lane becomes depressed and decides to commit suicide. However, he gives up and tries to improve his skiing to ski the dangerous K-12 slope to impress Beth. And this was given to us by Claudio Carvalho from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, via IMDb. I kind of edited a little bit, but most of these words are his. This movie was released in October 11, 1985 by A&M Films and CBS Theatrical Films. It grossed over $10 million in the US and Canada on a $3 million budget, and it had fair reviews. The funny thing about this is that I read somewhere that even though it basically tripled its budget, well, not tripled its budget, but the earnings were triple the budget, but it's still considered a failure, and I don't know why. It didn't make that much less than some of the other films similar types of film that came out in the day. So don't know why it was considered a failure, but I guess they really wanted to make $30 million, and they did not. But this movie was starring John Cusack as Lane Meyer, and everybody knows John Cusack. He's one of the biggest stars in this film, and he was a pretty big star at the time that this movie came out. He was also in Grosse Point Blank, High Fidelity, and Say Anything. And David Ogden Stiers, he played Al Meyer. He is best known for his role in MASH, the TV show. He's had a prolific career as a voice actor, so he's also appeared as a voice in Beauty and the Beast and Lilo and Stitch, among many others. We also have Kim Darby. She played Jenny Myers. She's been in True Grit and Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, as long as some other films, but she's been mostly in television. We also have Damon Slade. He played Johnny Gasparini, and Scooter Stevens played Badger Mayer. We also have Diane Franklin. She played Monique Junot. She was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Amityville 2, The Possession, The Last American Virgin in her early work, and lately she's been mostly in television. She's been a regular actress on television for a long time. We also have Laura Waterbury. She played Mrs. Smith. She was in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Summer School, and Inner Space, along with some other great movies. Also, Dan Snyder, he played Ricky Smith. He was in Head of the Class and many other early TV shows, but he's mostly spent his time as a writer, and he created iCarly. Hold on a second. My voice is tripping right now. I'm losing it, and I don't know why. Hold on a second. We also have Amanda Wace. She played Beth Truss, and she's been in Fast Time at Ridgemont High, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Silverado, and many other films and TV shows. We have Curtis Armstrong. He played Charles DeMar, and you may recognize him from Risky Business, Revenge of the Nerds, and he's been a voice on American Dad for these past several years. He's one of my favorite character actors. I'm always delighted when he shows up. And that's all we're going to do for the actors for right now. There are a few others, but I just wanted to highlight the ones that I just named. This movie was written and directed by Savage Steve Holland. He also directed he directed and wrote One Crazy Summer. He also was an animator for the Whammy character in Pressure Luck. If you remember the old Pressure Luck game from the mid 80s. If you haven't, there are plenty of YouTube clips and you will probably see the Whammy. It was a kind of a fun game when you tried to guess the right answer and or you spun the wheel, something like that. I can't remember. I think you spun a wheel and it was a Vegas style game and you tried to get like points or prizes or something. But sometimes you would get the Whammy and the Whammy was a bad thing and they were spinning the wheel and the contestants be like, no whammy, because they didn't want the Whammy, which Steve Holland had animated. Most of his work is on television. He only really did 2 feature films, and he also wrote Eek the Cat and Malibu Rescue. Those were his shows. And Eek the Cat was like one of my favorite shows on Cartoon Network. The music in this movie was by Rupert Hine, and he's also written songs for the Addams Family and The Fifth Element. So that's it for the rundown. And if you're enjoying the show, remember that you can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, jerseys, and more at our website, backlookcinema.com, where you can click to either teespring.com or tpublic.com. I have designs on both those sites. And what's great about those is that we've got new designs. So check out the new design. It features our new logo and whatnot. And right now, we're going to take a short news break. So, I just wanted to add something to the show where I'm just going to put out some stuff I heard over the past week, because what we're doing with the show now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put out the episode. I want to record and produce the episode and then put it out the same day or around the same time. So I'll probably record it and produce it on Friday, but I want to try to put it out Saturday. That is a goal. We'll see how that goes. So if I'm doing it, if I'm doing it currently, then I can add current event or near current events. So that is what I am trying at this juncture. So I'm just going to put stuff that I heard around the internet, for example. And, since this is after the week, you can also look at this as like a week in review because you probably know all of this already. But, so one of the things I heard around the internet is that Betty White had passed away at 99, according to various sources. I used to watch her on the Golden Girls all the time, and I love the way she portrayed that charming innocence. And she almost made it to 2022, where I feel like she's had a remarkable life. So, and she seemed like a charming person. I want to read something that I saw on Twitter that was talking specifically about Betty White. This was a tweet from Emily Holmes. Nope. Betty White didn't die. No. She grabbed 2021 by the throat and whispered in its ear, "I'm taking you with me, you son of a bitch." And then she threw them both down into the fires of Mordor to save us all. That's my fucking story, and I'm sticking to it. It is canon. Deal with it. And you know what? I think I have that same sentiment. So continuing with stuff I heard from DKO Ding, I think it's just kind of a neat way of saying decoding website. Deadline is reporting that Chris Evans is in secret talks with Marvel to play Steve Rogers, or I should say reprise his role as Steve Rogers. So that's very possible, as we all know, if you're into the Marvel MCU joints. Steve Rogers didn't actually die at the end of Endgame. He was just very old. So it's very possible that he'll come back as an old man, or maybe Doctor Strange will put the whammy on him and make him young again. We don't know in what capacity he might return, but there's definitely a chance. It's reported by Deadline. That's a somewhat reputable. So I'll put this as a almost believable rumor. Some other rumors that are floating around is that actor Charlie Cox, actor Charlie Cox will reprise his role as Matt Murdock, Daredevil, in a variety of projects for Marvel, including She-Hulk, Echo, and Armored Wars, and possibly a new Daredevil series. So I think we should all take this with a grain of salt. We know that he's definitely back. He's definitely back, as is Garofalo, what is the guy who played Kingpin? I can't remember his name off the back of my hand, but suffice to say, both the Kingpin and Daredevil are back in Marvel MCU proper, so we can definitely expect to see the both of them in upcoming shows and movies. So we don't, I can't confirm any of this. These are all rumors, but they're exciting rumors, I should say. So I think that's it for our news segment. The stuff I heard over the internet. Not much, as you can see, and I hope to make this little section more robust, and where I hear something interesting during the week, write it down, and then spew it to you over the show. Maybe you haven't heard this stuff, but most likely you have, because that's how things go. Anyway, let's get back to the show, where I'm going to talk about some of my favorite parts of the movie. I just want to say that I had a ball watching this movie when I was growing up. I have watched it several times, and many of the plot points and dialogues of this movie stick with me to this day. And I couldn't wait to share this with Zachary. He actually liked this movie, and he said he understood why I liked it. So I scored again. I knew that he would like this movie because, as I've always told you, Zachary is my clone. He's very much like me in many ways. So I'm glad that he enjoyed this movie. His sister happened to be home. She liked it. And I'm glad she did. I'm glad I was able to bring some joy into the lives of my family over the new year. So there are several things that I like. There's one particular line that lives with me. So let me scooch back up and find a name that I'm looking for. Diane Franklin, she played Monique Junot. She's actually I believe she's an American. She may be Canadian. I didn't look too deep into her background, but she's not French. But she has what I believe is a very authentic French accent. At least I thought at the time. I have no idea if it's good or bad. It's not like I've ever seen a French person evaluate her accent, but I would say it's real enough for American audiences. So in the movie, she plays a French exchange student, and she lives with a family, the Smiths, and they are not like the best people that you want to hang around with. So the Smith is really just a mother and her not very attractive son. And the issue with them is the mother is a little bit overbearing, and the son is just creepy in weird ways. It's kind of hard to pinpoint his creepiness. Like he has the bearing of someone that might do harm to other people. And so she's in the house and he's kind of like possessing her without saying too much. It's kind of, and at the same time, his mother is trying to set him up with her. So it's a kind of weird misogynist situation going on in that household with this French foreign exchange student. And to deal with this, she pretends not to be able to speak or understand English, even though she does. And she confesses to Lane Meyer, the main character. But of course I speak English. I speak very good English. So that actually lives with me. And if I mess it up, she says, I speak very good English. And she says, she says, of course I speak English. I speak very good English. And she basically says that, the less in that household, the less you say, the better off you will be. So, as I said earlier, the main situation is that Lane Meyer, played by John Cusack, Lane is totally obsessed with this girl. And I noticed things in this viewing, even though I've seen this movie like at least 5 or 6 times when I was younger, I don't remember how obsessed he was with his girlfriend. So he has pictures of his girlfriend all over the room. The movie opens on his room. So all over his room are pictures of his girlfriend. He sleeps with the photograph of his girlfriend. When he goes into the closet, every hanger has a picture of his girlfriend. So he's totally obsessed with her. And so that in and of itself is funny. Also, he has a weird little brother. His weird little brother's name is Badger Meyer. Creepy name for a creepy child. Says nothing the entire film, but does the most outrageous things throughout the entire movie. For example, him back in the day, and probably still today, but especially back in the day, they used to put offers on cereal boxes. Now, ideally, what you would do is that you would finish eating the entire box of cereal and then cut the coupons or offers from the cereal box. And then you would mail them in and you would get like toys or decoder rings or whatever. Also, the cereal wasn't just in a box. Usually it was in a bag. So it was a box, and then inside the box was a bag of cereal. And that's in case the box got wet or whatever. It was a nice safety precaution. But this little boy, because he's a much younger brother, this little boy would cut the bag and the box to get the coupons out before he finished the cereal. So there are boxes of cereal all up in the cabinets, and every time you pull out a cereal, this like cereal would just fall all over the place. And that was hilarious. The people just didn't say it. They were just used to it. The funniest things about this movie are the ongoing gags. So I would say that one of my favorite parts of the movie are the ongoing gags. So there's a gag with the father fighting. Well, he has a beef with the kid that delivers their newspaper, the newspaper boy. I got it out. So there's a kid going around the neighborhood. He's delivering newspapers. He doesn't lay the newspaper on the front porch. He's on a bicycle. He just tosses a newspaper. So the father is basically in competition with the schoolboy to prevent the schoolboy from breaking his garage door windows by tossing the paper and throwing it through the garage door windows instead of tossing the paper at the door. The garage door has 5 small windows. All of them are busted except one. And then there's this gag where he's running downstairs to try to roll the garage door to prevent the kid from breaking the window. And he succeeds, but the window breaks anything. It's a good gag. It's funny when it happens. There are other, and this child is threatening members of the family, particularly John Cusack, Lane Meyer, as a gangster might, looking for collection money from a business throughout the entire movie. So, like later on in the movie, the newspaper boy is chasing down Lane Meyer every chance he gets, asking for the $2 that he's owed for delivering papers. So that is that's a funny bit in the movie. There's another gag that plays throughout the movie that I really like. Is he drives his family car, which happens to be a station wagon, and he is constantly challenged to a race by these two Japanese students, and they are always in the car together. One is always doing the driving, one is always doing the talking, and the one that's doing the talking learned to speak English by watching the Wild World of Sports television show that was about various athletic events. I think it came on Saturday all the time, and they would cover like skiing and racing and I don't know, cross country running. It was like whatever various sports was happening in the summertime, and it was hosted by Howard Cosell. And if you know Howard Cosell, he had a very distinct way of speaking. So the one kid who knew English knew by watching Howard Cosell. So it's like, and now we're coming up to the race. The racers are ready. They are at the starting line. They face much trepidation. I don't know. My Howard Cosell impression is very bad, but it's funny when you see it done properly. So they're always taunting him at a stoplight into a race, and he always takes the bait, but he always does something where he crashes the car into another car. He does not manage to. He has a hard time winning the race against these guys, and that's a funny bit. And there's this weird bit where, like, after he's already broken up with Beth, after Lane, actually he doesn't break up with Beth. Beth breaks up with Lane, and after Beth breaks up with Lane, there's this weird thing where everybody's asking his permission to date Beth, which is weird because Beth did not break up with him and go single. Beth broke up with him specifically to be with another boy. And as the way she put it, she said, I think it would be better for the both of us if we broke up so that I can date somebody that's more popular. So that's how she breaks up with Lane. So after they break up very early in the movie, and so after they break up, Lane becomes very depressed because this girl was his entire world. So he becomes a little bit lethargic, and he devises of ways to end his own existence. And sometimes he'll get inspiration from a newspaper or something that he's seen around whatever. So there are several ways that he tries to end himself, and they don't really go as he expected. So the first attempt is he tries to hang himself with a garden hose, but that doesn't go as planned because he comes in the house. He tells his mother, who's vacuuming the floor, that his girlfriend broke up with him. Beth broke up with him, and she's somewhat oblivious because she's vacuuming and because she's not a very attentive mother. She's like, oh yeah, that's nice, dear, or whatever. Like so she's not really paying attention to what he says. So he decides that he doesn't want to live anymore, and he goes into the garage and he fixes, fashions a way to hang himself with the garden hose. And as he's doing it, he starts to think, well, I haven't done anything. I haven't been to New York. I haven't really had a life. Maybe I should rethink this whole thing. And then as he's rethinking it, he's on top of the stairs. His mom bumps open the door to the garage, knocking him off of the steps. And now he's hanging at a time where he does not want to hang. So he's struggling for his life. And his mom, still oblivious, but the pipes break, and he's okay because the pipes break. He would not have succeeded anyway because the pipes were not strong enough to hold his weight. And the other thing that he wants to do is he looks at this newspaper and he sees that a man has committed suicide by immolation. So he decides to try that. And this leads to another gag with a family dinner with the Smiths. They've invited his family has invited the Smiths over because they have this French foreign exchange student. So it was a way of welcoming the exchange student to the neighborhood. And this gag follows, it kind of flows into the gag of the overbearing mother and her creepy son and the trapped foreign exchange student who happens to have a crush on Lane. But Lane doesn't know that because he's still mourning the loss of his relationship with his girlfriend Beth. So that's all fascinating. So the family is ready for this dinner, and Lane is upstairs dressing himself in some kind of makeshift Komodo using a tie as a headband, and he uses kerosene, and he figures that I guess he's gonna pour it on himself. I don't know what he planned on doing with the kerosene. His motivation or his actions aren't entirely clear, but they call him downstairs for dinner. So he comes downstairs, he has the kerosene, and the neighbor, Mrs. Smith, she grabs the kerosene thinking that it's some kind of liquor, and she's drinking it, and she thinks that it's delicious. And then among the chick chat, she goes to light a cigarette, but Lane realized that she just drank a whole glass of kerosene, and he goes to stop her from lighting the cigarette, but she doesn't, and the kitchen blows up. The funny thing is that the kitchen seems fine later on in the movie, but it's a comedy, it's a plot hole that they don't intend to fix. And in subsequent scenes, when you see her mouth is all bandaged up because she didn't die, she's fine. Well, she's alive, but her mouth is bandaged up because she caused this huge explosion after drinking kerosene. So that's one way he avoided ending his own life. He tried to commit suicide by jumping off a bridge. It was overpass, actually. So it was overpassing traffic coming in a perpendicular to the bridge. So he's on top, and his best friend comes along and sees what he's doing, is trying to encourage him in order to continue on living. So his friend does this by making him realize that there are things that he can do. He's talented too. It's like the whole thing is over the ski slope. So Beth falls in love with this other dude because he's a better skier than Lane. Lane is good, but he's not great. And this other guy is great. He skis the most dangerous slope that they have access to, and he does it flawlessly. And this is not something Lane is capable of, so he feels worthless, and this is where his depression comes in. And so his friends remind him, you see, it's not just the skiing. You can learn to ski that slope. Well, along with that, you play the saxophone, and you're a good kid. There are things that you can do to win her back. So after giving this encouragement, Lane realizes that he doesn't have to jump off this overpass. And his friend, and this happens to be Curtis Armstrong playing Charles DeMar. So Charles DeMar gives him an attaboy pat on the back, inadvertently knocking Lane off of the overpass. And luckily, just as he was being knocked off, a garbage truck passes under by, and he kind of lands in the garbage, and he's saved by the garbage truck. So once again, avoiding his own demise. And as it's an open air garbage truck, so everybody that's high enough can see inside. So there are some tree clip, not construction workers, landscapers, and they see the truck, and they see who's inside. And that's when the guy says, it's a damn shame I'm throwing away a perfectly good white boy like that. So that's funny. You can actually see that in the trailer. The last attempt that he had that they actually showed in the movie was suffocation by carbon monoxide poisoning. So in this case, he was in the family car, and he turned on the engine with the motor running. And so he hoped to poison himself with carbon monoxide. And it was at this time that his father had fixed all the windows in the garage, and he had closed. So when he closed the garage door, it would ensure his own demise. And so while he was there, he was smoking a cigarette. He was going to lay in a car. He was going to fall asleep, and he planned on dying. But it happened at the same time that his father was showing his father was showing his mother the how he had repaired all the windows on the garage door. He had gotten around to repairing it. And for some reason that I can't understand, he was actually like when Lane was in the car, apparently the car was in reverse and he was holding the car in place with the brake. So as he started to fall asleep, his foot slipped off the brake and the car went into reverse and reversed out of the garage, breaking the garage door and at the same time saving his life. So there's a lot of that going on. Also, now that I remember this, you could consider this a Christmas movie since this movie actually takes place around the holidays. They go through Christmas and New Year's. And that was included in one of the gags. So one of the gags that I forgot to mention earlier is Lane's mother. So Lane's mother is Jenny Meyer, and she was played by Kim Darby, and she's kind of dipsy, but her greatest fault is her cooking. So she's constantly trying to cook. Apparently, she has a passion for cooking, but she cooks horrible food, like absolutely horrible. And one of her dishes, she tries to make something, I don't even know what it is that she's trying to make, but whatever it is slime, and she comments, it has raisins in it. You like raisins, don't you? So she drops the slime. It looks like gray jello. She drops this slime onto the plates of her family, the father, Lane. And as the conversation is taking place, Lane is looking at the slime that his mom had dropped on his plate, and then the slime began to crawl away of its own accord. So his mom is a horrible cook. And so to go along with this theme, as Christmas presents, she gave them TV dinners. She gave Lane and her husband TV dinners as Christmas presents. So that's where she's at when it comes to cooking. So this is a very simple story. The whole gist of the story is that you have this kid, his girlfriend breaks up with him, he becomes depressed, he looks for ways to impress her, to win her back. So one of the things he does, he's trying to learn how to ski on a ski slope, and a ski slope that he does not have the aptitude for. And every time he practices it, he's just rolling down the mountain because, he really can't grasp how to do this particular slope. And all the while, he's being harassed by this newspaper kid asking for $2. He's being harassed by these racers or these kids that are trying to race him on the street while he's in his family's car. And then he's also being harassed by the bully. Well, he's not really a bully, but the kid that took his girlfriend, the one that his girlfriend preferred over him, the kid that he's trying to ski better than in order to win his girlfriend back. And while all of this is happening, you have the French exchange student who is trying to basically avoid having a relationship with the family that she's found herself stuck with. But it happens that the exchange student meets Lane. The exchange student being Monique. Is that the name? Is that her name? Yeah, Monique. So Monique and Lane start to build a relationship. Lane has this Camaro that's just sitting in the garage, she's sitting on a lawn, covered with a tarp, and Lane doesn't quite know how to fix it. And because she is also Monique is also a mechanic, Lane and Monique fix the car together. It builds up his confidence, and now he starts to practice going down this K-12. So, and his friend also, Curtis Armstrong, is also helping him out, and he gave him this sage advice as far as going down this dangerous slope called the K-12. And the advice he gave Lane was, go that way very, very fast. If something gets in your way, turn. And those are the only instructions he get. And he really can't quite do that. Now, as you can imagine, at the end of the movie, he's able to conquer his fears, do what he needs to do in order to get his girlfriend back. But then realizing how shallow his relationship was with his girlfriend, goes and rescue the French exchange student from her family. And that is basically the movie. And it's so funny. It's one of my favorite movies when I was growing up, and rewatching it nothing cringy. I mean, yeah, there is talk about suicide and depression, but I'm not really sensitive to that, so those subjects didn't really bother me. And it is as fun now as it was when I watched it as a teenager. Now, this is aimed at teenagers, so it will be funnier than them, theoretically, because this is an old movie. So there are a lot of references that a young person today probably won't get. Well, if you're an older person, plenty of references that will still be funny, I believe. So if you get a chance to check out this movie, those were some of my favorite parts. And I gave you a little bit of the plot and synopsis of the movie. And I would really encourage you to go in and check it out. It's out there somewhere on DVD or Blu-ray. So I can't really say enough about this movie. Or maybe I can. But I just can't think of anything else right now where only that I just wanted to express that this was a fun movie to me. And now that I've talked about some of my favorite parts, let's get into some of the trivia of this movie. So the trivia was provided by IMDb. So I will start with this. The DVD sleeve notes that, or it declares that writer-director Savage Steve Holland says Better Off Dead is a semi-autobiographical, and after his high school love ditched him, he picked up an 8mm camera and made some depressing movies that had the exact opposite effect on his friends. They laughed. These couple of 8mm short films then got screened on the film festival circuit, upon which Holland decided to develop the story ideas from these shorts into a feature-length screenplay for Better Off Dead. Also, there's one more thing I meant to mention earlier. The film is often interrupted by these animations. Like there was a claymation segment, and there are these, since Lane likes to draw, he'll draw these cartoons, these little pictures, these doodles, and then these doodles will come to life because his imagination gets away with him. So he's imagining having conversations with these doodles, and then he'll have these outbursts because of these doodles, and that's another gag in the movie. And the reason I believe that these animations and this claymation are featured in the film is because Savage Steve Holland has an animation background. He had went to an animation school. So I think that's the reason for these animations being in the film. So according to Savage Steve Holland, the film is mostly autobiographical. Holland really was suicidal when his high school girlfriend left him for a captain of the ski team. Also, he really did have a paperboy named Johnny Gasparini who would harass him for $2. According to Holland, when the film came out, the ex-girlfriend contacted him to apologize, which I think is kind of funny. Savage Steve Holland stated in an interview that John Cusack hated this movie and walked out on the film after 20 minutes during a special screening prior to the start of production on One Crazy Summer that came out in 1986. Holland said the next morning, Cusack basically walked up to me and was like, you tricked me. Better Off Dead was the worst thing I've ever seen. I will never trust you as a director ever again. So don't speak to me. He was just really upset. And I said, what happened? What's wrong? and he just said that I sucked, and it was the worst thing he had ever seen, and that I had used him and made a fool of him, and all of the other stuff. And so, out of left field, it just floored me. Cusack completed principal photography on One Crazy Summer due to contractual obligation, but if it had not been for this, Cusack likely would have not done a second film with Holland. And my commentary on this is that this is basically Holland's last feature film anyway. And after that, he kind of went to television and animation. In a 2004 interview, Savage Steve Holland said of his suicide attempts, which inspired this movie, "I went into the garage and I put on an extension cord on a pipe on a garbage can. And I'm thinking, should I do this? Maybe this isn't a good idea. Anyway, it was a plastic garbage can and my weight just crashed through it and I fell and the pipe broke and it just starts pouring water everywhere. And I'm basically in a garbage can drowning. And my mom comes and starts yelling at me for breaking a pipe, which is what any mom would do. So I started writing down stupid ways to kill yourself that would fail after that. And I put them in a sort of diary. And that diary kind of became Better Off Dead." So, in continuing, Japanese-American actor Yuji Okamoto was so excited to audition for the role of the Asian brother with the Howard Cosell affectation that he studied every tape of Wild Water Sports that he could practice and perfect a believable Cosell impression. Knowing his character learned English exclusively through sports shows, he decided to add an Asian accent to his Cosell voice. The producers and director thought it was very funny, and he was given the role. However, in post-production, it was decided to bring in impressionist Rich Little to overdub Okamoto's voice, with Little's customary Cosell imitation without the Asian accent. Says Okamoto, they explained that they wanted to make sure the audience understood the dialogue. It was a little disappointing, but hey, it's still film. And that's a great attitude to have, because it seems to me that they would have asked him first to overdub his own voice. I think that would have been a better way to go, but they decided to go with Rich Little instead, which at the time was a very funny and very popular comedian. Lane's mother experimental cooking was inspired by Savage Steve Holland's mother, who did the same thing. My mom would get McCall's magazine and she would find these recipes and make these things and have some excuses why they didn't taste good because she forgot something or she didn't have an ingredient, Holland told Entertainment Weekly. One year for his birthday, not Christmas, she gifted him with some TV dinners. She was like, "And I got you these really cool frozen dinners because you like peach cobbler and this one or something." And I was like, wow, really? This is my life. As a promo for the movie, Diane Franklin had her manager contact Dodger Stadium to see if they were interested in having her do an autograph signing. I just kind of thought it would be for fun for people, because if they saw the movie and I was at Dodger Stadium, it would kind of be a fun venue to come and see me there, she said. The ballpark said no to a signing, but asked her to sing the anthem. What was unusual about that was that when they introduced me, I thought they were going to say, "And here's Diane Franklin from Better Off Dead," or "Here's Diane Franklin from Bill and Ted," or something. And they would wound up saying, "And here's Diane Franklin." And I'm thinking, who knows Diane Franklin? Nobody knows who I am. It was funny. It was so funny. And what's interesting about that is that one of the elements of the film is that her character had wanted to see Dodger Stadium, and that is where the movie ends. So, continuing, despite his initial hatred of the film, as well as director Savage Steve Holland, John Cusack admitted in a 2013 interview that he does not hate the film or making it. While he wishes some things were better, he stated that he feels that way about every movie he has made and is happy it has achieved cult status and remains popular. Next, during the cafeteria scene with Chris Cummins, all the basketball players are eating baby food. And finally, Henry Winkler was instrumental in getting the film made. In the early 1980s, Savage Steve Holland's short film, My 11-Year-Old Birthday Party, played at the Los Angeles Film Festival. Winkler saw the film and took a liking to Holland. At Winkler's suggestion, Holland checked out John Cusack in The Sure Thing from 1985, which Winkler executive produced. After seeing the movie, Holland thought that Cusack was perfect for the lead role. Holland had to fight to get Cusack cast, as the studio didn't think he was much of a leading man, based on his nerdy turn in 16 Candles that came out in 1984. So that's it that I had for the trivia. That's some of the most interesting trivia that I could find from this movie. And some of it I didn't know about. Well, actually, I didn't know about most of it, and I found a lot of it fascinating. So now let's move along to see, what did the critics think about Better Off Dead? What's funny that I even though it's one of those movies that I really liked, and a lot of the stuff I like is not popular fare, and I was surprised to see that critics actually dug this movie. They really liked it a lot, better than I suspected. So on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a critic score of 76 and an audience score of 87. And on IMDb reviews, it has a 7.2. So I'm like, whoa, that's pretty good. So the first critic I have is Dane Berardinelli from Real Views. He wrote, there's a potentially edgy aspect to Better Off Dead's comedy that's never fully realized. And I don't know if I agree with that. We have to remember that comedy is subjective, and something can be objectively funny, but not funny to individual people. So I like I said, I thought it was funny. Everybody who was watching it with me yesterday thought it was funny. So I'm going to say that, it's not going to be for everybody. Danny Anderson from Film Inquiry wrote, Savage Steve Holland, along with Cusack and the rest of his cast, accomplished something unique with Better Off Dead. At the surface, the film exhibits the same regressive political traits as many of its contemporary peers. I think that's correct. We move on to Paul Atanasio. Let me say that again. Paul Atanasio. Got it. From the Washington Post. He wrote, marred in this is Cusack, an unusually adept verbal comedian, not so adept, to his credit, at this kind of slapstick. And I don't know. Like I said, comedy is subjective. Finally, we have Christopher Knoll of filmcritic.com. I love this movie with its bizarre tangents and dream sequences. And yes, that is, the dream sequences are a unique aspect of this, because they deal with the animation. They deal with him just going off into fantasy while he's supposed to be doing something serious. So that's it for Better Off Dead. And Better Off Dead, as of this recording, is available on Blu-ray and DVD. So if you get a chance, go and pick it up. So one last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow. To do this, you can rate us, or you can write a review on Spotify, Podchaser.com, or Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. And you can also share our show with someone. Don't forget, you can contact us at fanmail@backliccinema.com. Believe me, it matters. So be safe, share a movie with your family, hug your loved ones, be outstanding, and Happy New Year.